Next, we shall concentrate on the physical properties. First point we are going to consider is the comparison of the boiling points. First, I have considered diethyl ether and I have considered hydrocarbon of comparable molar masses. Then I have considered isomeric alcohol. You know, alcohol and ethers are functional isomers. So, just concentrate on the molar masses here. Here it is 74, here it is 72. So, we have considered an ether with hydrocarbon of comparable molar masses. So, if you compare their boiling points, they are closer to one another. Or in other words, though ethers are weakly polar, their boiling points are comparable with the hydrocarbons of comparable molar masses. So, ethers, though they are weakly polar, their boiling points are comparable with the hydrocarbons of comparable molar masses. Let us go to the second point. In the second point, I am going to compare the boiling point of ethers with isomeric alcohol. When you say isomers, you know, their molar masses must be the same. And if you look at the boiling point of alcohol is found to be greater than the boiling point of isomeric ether. What is the reason for that? As we already know, when I say ethanol, I'll write the structure like this. This is one molecule of ethanol. So one more molecule of ethanol, I'll represent it this way. And you know, the two molecules of alcohol are associated through stable intermolecular hydrogen bonding. And since we have to provide more amount of energy to break the hydrogen bonding, more energy is required, hence it must have higher boiling point. So what's the basic reason? Basic reason is alcohol molecules are associated through stable intermolecular hydrogen bonding, hence more amount of energy has to be provided to separate ethanol molecules from one another. On the other hand, if you consider diethyl ether, this cannot form hydrogen bond at all. The second physical property we are going to compare is water solubility. I'll consider ethers and along with that isomeric alcohols, and when I compare their water solubility in water, they are found to be almost comparable. Now the question is, why are ethers, especially lower ethers, are soluble in water? In order to understand that, let's consider the structure of ethers. So we have RO, R dash. Ethers I have represented like this. Then I can consider water molecule this way. Now we can think of hydrogen bonding between ethers and water molecules, which can be represented like this. So here again we come across intermolecular hydrogen bonding, or in other words, ether is able to interact with water molecule through intermolecular hydrogen bonding. That's why lower ethers are soluble in water. And as you go to higher ethers, in other words, as the size of the R group increases, because of the predominance of hydrophobic non-polar alkyl group, water solubility keeps on decreasing. We'll start from the chemical properties of ether. The first reaction we are going to consider is a cleavage of carbon-oxygen bond in ethers. Remember, ethers are the most unreactive functional groups. It's for that reason ethers are widely used as solvents. In other words, they do not take part in chemical reaction. In spite of that, if I still want to bring about the cleavage of carbon-oxygen bond, I have to go for drastic conditions. When I say drastic conditions, I have to make use of either concentrated HI or concentrated HBr, and reaction has to be carried out at higher temperature. We'll start from the first reaction. Here I'm going to use excess of hydrogen halides. I'll start from ether, symmetric ether, and I'm going to make use of hydrogen halide. I'll just consider the polarity so that I can write the products easily. Hydrogen must have delta plus, halogen must have delta minus. Same way, if I consider carbon-oxygen bond, you know that oxygen is more electronegative than carbon. That's why this oxygen must have delta minus charge and this R group must have delta plus charge. Now, if you bring about the reaction, you know that the opposite polarities will combine with one another. So, RO delta minus will combine with H delta plus. It has to give you alcohol molecule, and at the same time this R carrying partial positive charge will combine with X with partial negative charge, gives you alkyl halide RX. The reaction won't stop here because we are going to use excess of hydrogen halide. What happens in the second step is formed alcohol will undergo reaction with one more molecule of hydrogen halide. What way reaction takes place? Again, we have to go for the polarity. So when you consider polarity, you know that here hydrogen has delta plus and halogen has delta minus. And here you consider RO bond. You know, carbon is less electronegative than oxygen. That's why carbon, R group will have partial positive charge, oxygen will have partial negative charge. Now you just combine the opposite polarities with one another. So partially electron deficient R will combine with partially electron rich X, gives you REX. In addition to that, H delta plus will combine with OH delta minus, gives you a molecule of water. Now I can write the total equation. So ROH gets cancelled. So we get ROR ROR. I'll use 2 moles of HX. It has to give you 2 molecules of RX along with water. Now it's very clear then, if we start from ethers and we make use of excess of hydrogen halide, we get 2 molecules of alkyl halide along with water. Now the question is, if we do not provide excess of hydrogen halide, what way the cleavage takes place, especially when the ethers are mixed ethers or unsymmetrical ethers. So we shall start from unsymmetrical ethers. And concentrated acid used are, one is HI, the other one is HBr. In this case, you know, the nucleophile in this case is I minus. Here also nucleophile is I minus. But whenever I make use of HBr, the nucleophile is Br minus. Here it is I minus. And you know that the reaction taking place in this case are nucleophilic substitution reactions. I am going to denote it as SN. Because I am using limited amount of concentrated HI or HBr, where exactly cleavage takes place in ethers? Here there are two possibilities. Let us say possibility 1, the cleavage can take place between carbon and oxygen, where carbon is in the form of methyl group. The other possibility is the cleavage can take place over here, where the carbon of ethyl group is attacked by I minus. Let us just analyze what is most likely. When you have methyl group and ethyl group, which type of nucleophilic substitution reaction takes place? We know it has to be SN2. When SN1 mechanism is favored, whenever cleavage of a bond results in the formation of a stable tertiary alkyl carbocation, benzyl carbocation or allyl carbocation, then it follows SN1 mechanism. In other cases where R group is CH3 or you have a primary alkyl group or secondary alkyl group, it will follow SN2 mechanism. And when you say SN2, you know that the nucleophile has to attack the least sterically hindered carbon. Least sterically hindered carbon. When I say that, you see, this carbon atom is surrounded by 3 smaller hydrogen atoms, whereas when you consider this carbon atom, it is surrounded by 2 hydrogens and 1 bulkier methyl group. So, if we consider this molecule, which carbon atom is least sterically hindered? It is nothing but carbon atom of CH3. What is the reason? This carbon atom is surrounded by 3 smaller hydrogen group, whereas in this case this carbon atom is surrounded by 2 smaller hydrogens and 1 bulkier methyl group. Now it is very clear that the nucleophile I minus has to attack that particular carbon which is least sterically hindered. So it will attack CH3 group then. So I minus combines with CH3. So product obtained must be CH3I. So this cleavage is preferred now, not this cleavage. So what I am left with? Here I have CH3, CH2 and O, and it has to go with the other atom here, hydrogen. So it has to give you CH3, CH2, OH. So if you understand this concept, you know, you need not mug up the products. Very easily you can predict the products that could be formed. So what all points you are supposed to know? First thing you are supposed to know is this reaction takes place through nucleophilic substitution mechanism. Point number 2, if the R and R dash groups are either primary or secondary alkyl groups, the reaction will follow SN2 mechanism. On the other hand, if the alkyl group is a tertiary alkyl group, or if alkyl group is allyl or benzyl group, that would follow SN1 mechanism. Now the question is, when will it follow SN2 mechanism what is a basic point we have to know? The nucleophile will always attack least sterically hindered carbon. That is why when you have an option between CH3 and ethyl group, the nucleophile I- has to attack methyl group. Now same concept I am going to extend in the second case. This side what we have is a secondary alkyl group, and this side it is a primary alkyl group. Definitely there is no possibility of formation of stable carbocation. Again, in this case it has to follow SN2 mechanism, right? So just find out between this carbon atom and this carbon atom which is least sterically hindered. You know, this carbon atom is surrounded by two smaller hydrogen atoms, whereas this carbon atom is surrounded by only one smaller hydrogen. So between the two groups, the one which is least sterically hindered is this particular group. That is why the nucleophile I- has to attack the carbon atom of the ethyl group. So this particular cleavage takes place over here. So what do we get? We will get CH3 CH2I plus whatever hydrogen is left that goes on the other side. So we have to get it as CH3 CHOH CH3. So products obtained are ethyl iodide and isopropyl alcohol. Same way, if you go for the third example, we have a tertiary butyl methyl ether. So this side we have a tertiary alkyl group, whereas this side is a methyl group. And whenever one is tertiary alkyl, if the bond cleavage takes place over here, it will result in the formation of more stable tertiary butyl carbocation. So this reaction has to follow SN1 mechanism. Whenever there is a possibility of formation of more stable carbocation like tertiary alkyl carbocation, allyl carbocation or benzyl carbocation, remember it will follow SN1 mechanism. When you say SN1 mechanism, this carbon oxygen bond has to undergo heterolysis, and this carbon atom will carry positive charge. We get a tertiary butyl carbocation. So that carbon atom carrying positive charge is attacked by the nucleophile Br-. So the product obtained in this case must be tertiary butyl bromide plus it is methanol. So in this case the product formed is methanol and tertiary butyl bromide. Here you have to be careful, the mechanism followed is SN1. Now same way, if I go for anisole, let us just talk about cleavage of carbon oxygen bond. So possibility, one possibility is here, other possibility is here. Now this possibility is ruled out. Why this possibility is ruled out? You know, the bond between oxygen and phenyl group has a partial double bond character. Partial double bond character due to resonance like this. Because of that, what happens to bond order? Bond order increases, breaking the bond becomes more difficult. That's why in case of anisole, which particular bond is broken? The bond between oxygen and carbon atom of the alkyl group is broken. So I repeat, the bond between oxygen and carbon atom of the phenyl group cannot be cleaved. What is the reason? This particular bond has a partial double bond character due to resonance. That's why bond order increased, bond strength increased, so breaking the bond is more difficult. Instead of that, you know, the bond between oxygen and carbon atom of the alkyl group is cleaved. So what should be the product then? This CH3 is readily attacked by I minus now, because this reaction follows SN2, right? So what should we get? We have to get CH3I, and hydrogen will go with this oxygen. What we get is phenol. So we get methyl iodide and phenol. We will consider the next example. Here again, I have to think whether I can bring about this carbon-oxygen bond cleavage, or I can go for this carbon-oxygen bond cleavage. Remember, if this carbon-oxygen bond cleavage takes place, we get more stable, resonance stabilized benzyl carbocation. We'll have a benzene ring and CH2 plus. We get benzyl carbocation. That is why this particular cleavage is favored, not this one. And because this gives you more stable carbocation, it has to follow SN1 mechanism. And nucleophile used in this case is I minus. Now it's very clear that this I minus has to attack the benzyl carbocationic carbon. As a result, the products obtained are benzyl iodide. Along with that, the CH3O will combine with hydrogen, that gives you CH3OH. So products obtained are benzyl iodide and methyl alcohol. So same way, when we come to the next one, here again, this particular bond cleavage has to be favored because it gives you more stable benzyl carbocation. Again, SN1 mechanism here. So we have I minus as the nucleophile. Just like the previous case, the product formed will be a benzene ring, then we have CH2I, and the other product obtained is a phenol. And in the last case, again we shall consider the cleavage of carbon-oxygen bond. So this particular cleavage is favored. This is not favored, because when the cleavage takes place over here, this carbon atom will have positive charge. What we get is a allyl carbocation, and we know allyl carbocation is more stable. That's why in this case again it is a SN1 mechanism, and in this case the nucleophile used is Br minus. So this Br minus will attack allyl carbocation carbon. So products obtained are CH2 double bond CH, then we have CH2Br, and the other product that is obtained will be CH3OH. So in short, what I can say, in all these reactions, if the cleavage of carbon-oxygen bond results in more stable carbocation like tertiary alkyl, benzyl or allyl, reaction will follow SN1 mechanism, and the halide ion nucleophile will go with those carbocationic species. On the other hand, if R and R dash groups are primary or secondary alkyl groups, then it will follow SN2 mechanism. The nucleophile must go with that carbon atom which is the least sterically hindered. So this is a very important concept. Question will be asked in the board examination, will be asked very commonly in all competitive examination. and it's so simple. There is no need to remember the products. You can easily arrive at the actual products. The next reaction is nitration. We have to make use of nitrating mixture of concentrate nitric acid and concentrate sulfuric acid. Electrophile in this case is NO2 plus, and this has to attach to the para and ortho positions. Hence, the products obtained are, one is para-nitroanisole, which is the major product, and in minor quantity formed is ortho-nitroanisole. So these are various aromatic electrophilic substitution reaction. With this, the chapter gets over.